As the eerie strains of spooky background music begin to echo around you, I pose a chilling question. Are you ready to dive into the darkest corners of horror? Join me, Artur Ladny, as we uncover some of the most chilling facts that will keep you up at night. From the origins of bone-chilling terms to the eerie echoes of the first horror films, prepare to walk a shadowy path into the realm where nightmares dwell. Let's lift the veil on the macabre and the terrifying, exploring tales and truths that have haunted human minds throughout history. What sends shivers down your spine when you hear the word horror? This term, steeped in a chilling history, originates from the Latin word horrere, meaning to tremble or shudder, aptly capturing the essence of the genre. The evolution of horror from a physical reaction to a film genre reveals much about our collective fascination with fear. Initially used to describe the horrifying acts of ancient rituals and mythic tales, the word has since morphed into a label for experiences that provoke fear, dread, and shock. Imagine the ancient audiences, their hearts pounding as they watched theatrical representations of their darkest myths. These performances were not just entertainment. They were communal experiences of the macabre, designed to elicit the deepest emotional responses. Fast forward to the Gothic literature of the 18th century, where horror began to take on more complex contours, intertwining fear with the sublime, making our attraction to terror a complex, layered experience. This blend of dread and awe paved the way for the horror genre as we know it today, turning fear into a form of art that probes the depths of human psyche and societal fears. Why do we continue to be drawn to horror? It's a question that leads us into our next chapter, but the roots lie deep in the history of horror, echoing our innate desire to confront and understand our deepest fears. The journey into cinematic horror began with a flickering light in a dark room. Considered by many as the first true horror film, Le Manoir du Diable, The House of the Devil, created by Georges Méliès in 1896, introduced audiences to a world where the supernatural became visual. This short film, barely over 3 minutes long, used innovative tricks of the time, such as jump cuts and dissolves, to bring ghosts and demons to life on screen, setting a precedent for all horror cinema that followed. Imagine sitting in a dimly lit hall at the end of the 19th century, witnessing what seemed like actual apparitions, materializing and vanishing before your eyes. The impact was profound, tapping into the primal human fear of the unknown and the unseen. Méliès, a magician turned filmmaker, effectively used his understanding of illusion to manipulate the audience's emotions, crafting scenes that were both terrifying and mesmerizing. This film not only marked the birth of horror in cinema, but also highlighted the powerful potential of film as a medium to explore psychological and supernatural themes. As we delve deeper into the shadows of horror's history, we begin to see how each step in its evolution reflects broader changes in technology and society's relationship with fear. The legacy of Le Manoir du Diable is not just in its scares, but in how it expanded the language of cinema to include the spectral and the uncanny. What draws us into the dark, into the embrace of fear? Horror movies, with their chilling tales and suspenseful atmospheres, captivate many. But why do we relish this fear? Psychological studies suggest that the thrill of horror films is intricately tied to our basic human instincts. The adrenaline rush, the heightened alertness, the palpable tension. These elements mimic the ancient evolutionary responses to danger. Our brains, it seems, are wired to perceive these simulated threats as real, triggering a fight-or-flight response that is both terrifying and exhilarating. But there's more to this macabre fascination than primal instinct. Horror movies also provide a safe space to explore the concept of death, a topic often taboo in everyday conversation. In the darkness of the cinema or the glow of our TV screens, we confront our mortality, yet in a controlled environment where the boundary between reality and fiction is clearly defined. This exploration allows viewers to experience intense emotions and catharsis, purging negative feelings through the vicarious experiences of the characters on screen. Moreover, horror films often serve as mirrors reflecting societal fears. Themes of isolation, pandemics, supernatural forces, and technological overreach resonate differently depending on the current global climate. By engaging with these stories, audiences can process real-world anxieties in a manageable, often metaphorical form. The communal experience of watching horror also cannot be underestimated. Shared fear strengthens communal bonds, creates shared language and culture, and might even enhance our empathy by aligning us with the characters' plights. There's a certain camaraderie that develops when experiencing fear in a group, a sense of unity forged in the fires of fictional horror. Interestingly, personality types play a role in the appeal of horror. Those with higher levels of sensation-seeking are more likely to enjoy scary films. These individuals thrive on new and intense experiences, and horror movies provide just that, an escape from the mundane, a journey into the unknown. So next time you watch a horror movie, remember, it's not just about the scares, it's about understanding our fears, bonding over shared adrenaline, and maybe just a little bit about enjoying the thrill of the scream. Behind many a fictional horror lies a kernel of truth, a real-life event that has been twisted into cinematic terror. These stories fascinate and frighten us, not just because they are scary, but because they are rooted in reality. Take, for instance, the infamous Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, inspired by the real-life crimes of Ed Gein, a murderer and body snatcher from Wisconsin. The unsettling truth that someone like Gein existed adds a layer of horror to Norman Bates's character. Another chilling example is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which, although marketed as a true story, is only loosely based on Gein's horrifying acts. This blending of fact and fiction creates a narrative both enthralling and unsettling, pushing the boundaries of traditional horror into something grotesquely real. Then there's the Amityville Horror, purported to be based on true events in a haunted house in New York. Whether fact or fiction, the story of the Lutz family encountering malevolent forces taps into the primal fear of our homes turning against us, one of our safest places becoming a site of terror. The psychological thriller Silence of the Lambs 2 draws from real life, combining elements from various serial killers to shape the character of Hannibal Lecter. This mosaic of true crime elements presents a villain who is not only plausible, but also profoundly disturbing because of his grounding in reality. Horror often acts as a lens, magnifying human fears and societal issues. The real-life inspirations behind these movies serve to remind us that sometimes the monsters we imagine are not nearly as terrifying as the real ones walking among us. Understanding these origins also offers an additional layer of appreciation for the craft of horror storytelling, where filmmakers transform real-world horrors into narratives that allow us to confront the darkest aspects of existence safely. Our planet houses many a shadowed corner, echoing with tales of the past, some so saturated with the supernatural that they've become the stuff of legend. Among these, the Tower of London stands out. A historic site with a bloody past, it is reputedly haunted by a host of spirits, including that of Anne Boleyn, seen carrying her head under her arm. Across the Atlantic in the United States, the Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia offers chilling tours of its decrepit halls. Once the home of America's most notorious criminals, its abandoned cells are said to be rife with ghostly presences, the remnants of tortured souls. In Asia, the Aokigahara Forest at the base of Mount Fuji in Japan, also known as the Suicide Forest, is infamous for its paranormal sightings. The dense forest has a grim reputation as a site for suicides, making it a hotspot for ghost hunters and those fascinated by the macabre. Europe's contribution to haunted lore includes the catacombs of Paris. These underground ossuaries, which hold the remains of millions, create a labyrinthine domain of the dead beneath the city's bustling streets. Visitors report encounters with the inexplicable and the eerie in the dimly lit tunnels. Venturing down under, Australia's Port Arthur, a former convict settlement, is now a heritage site and one of the island's most haunted spots. The ruins stand as a grim reminder of Australia's penal history and are known for paranormal activities that unsettle even the most sceptical visitors. These places, marked by history and tragedy, invite us to ponder the veil between life and death. They challenge our skepticism, beckon our curiosity, and whether one believes in ghosts or not, they remind us of the power of story to breathe life into the long deceased. Such sites continue to haunt our world's cultural imagination, making them unforgettable destinations for the brave and the curious. In the chilling echelons of cinematic history, certain objects have become almost as iconic as the films themselves. Consider the menacing hockey mask from Friday the 13th or the eerie puzzle box from Hellraiser. These props have not only defined scenes, but have become legendary symbols in horror lore. But where are these infamous items now? The fate of many such props is as mysterious and twisted as the plots of the movies they come from. For instance, the original Michael Myers mask from Halloween was actually a William Shatner mask painted white. It's reported that after filming, the mask was misplaced and has never been officially located since, contributing further to its ghostly legend. Another famed prop is the chainsaw from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which symbolized terror in the hands of the horrifying Leatherface. Post-filming, the chainsaw was kept by the film's director, Tobe Hooper, as a chilling memento. It's occasionally displayed at special film events, evoking shivers just as it did on screen. Then there's the actual Annabelle doll from the Conjuring series, a far cry from the grotesque figure seen in the movies, being just a regular Raggedy Ann doll. This supposedly haunted object is now locked away in the Warrens Occult Museum in Connecticut, secured in a glass box with warning signs about the malevolent spirit it's said to house. Not all props face a fate of obscurity or enclosure. The axe from The Shining, with which Jack Torrance terrorized his family, was auctioned off to a private collector in 2019 for over $200,000, proving that the allure of horror can indeed have a hefty price tag. As we delve into these stories of iconic horror movie props, their fates often intertwine with the myths and legends of cinema itself. Whether lost, preserved, or sold, each object carries with it a narrative steeped in the macabre, continuing to influence and terrify beyond the silver screen. The tendrils of horror films reach far beyond the confines of the cinema, weaving into the very fabric of society. These films do more than just entertain. They reflect and shape societal fears, challenge moral boundaries, and even influence real-world behavior. Let's explore how horror has left its indelible mark on our world. Historically, horror films have acted as mirrors, reflecting societal anxieties and the collective nightmares of their times. During the Cold War, films like Invasion of the Body Snatchers tapped into fears of infiltration and loss of personal autonomy. Today, modern horrors such as Get Out examine racial tensions and the fear of the other, pushing viewers to confront uncomfortable truths about society. Moreover, horror movies often challenge societal norms and push moral boundaries. They allow viewers to explore the darker side of human nature from a safe distance, engaging with taboo topics that might be off-limits in other genres. This can lead to greater empathy and understanding, or in some cases a cathartic release of pent-up emotions. Economically, horror films have proven to be incredibly lucrative, often made with low budgets and yielding high returns. This profitability has led to their proliferation, ensuring their influence on popular culture and entertainment. The success of franchises like Saw and Paranormal Activity highlight the genre's significant impact on the film industry. However, the impact of horror is not always positive. The genre has also faced criticism for desensitizing viewers to violence and perpetuating harmful stereotypes. The portrayal of mental illness in slasher films, for instance, has often been pointed out as both stigmatizing and inaccurate. In conclusion, horror movies are a powerful cultural tool that both reflects and affects society. They can provoke thought, offer escapism, and even incite change. As we continue to watch these stories unfold in darkened theatres, their true power lies in their ability to haunt us long after the credits roll. In the shadowy corners of horror cinema, myths and legends abound. But not everything you hear about horror movies is true. Let's shine a light on some of the most persistent myths and set the record straight. One common myth is that horror movies are only for the fringes of society, enjoyed only by those with a morbid curiosity. However, studies show that horror is a popular genre across various demographics, appealing because of its ability to provide safe thrills and a means to confront fears vicariously through the characters. Another myth is that watching horror movies can be psychologically damaging. While it's true that they can cause nightmares and temporary anxiety for some, for others, horror films are cathartic. They provide a way to manage anxiety and fear in a controlled environment, often leading to a sense of relief or exhilaration after confronting these intense emotions. The myth of the cursed horror film set is also popular, with movies like The Exorcist and Poltergeist often cited as examples. While eerie incidents occurred during their production, attributing these to supernatural causes rather than coincidence is a leap. The allure of these stories, however, adds to the mystique and marketing of these films. There's also the belief that horror movies are simple, relying solely on jump scares and gore. However, the genre is rich with complex narratives, deep psychological elements, and innovative filmmaking techniques that challenge and subvert expectations. Debunking these myths is crucial, not just for understanding the genre better, but for appreciating the artistry and impact of horror films. They are not just tales of terror, but are reflective of deep, often unspoken human fears. As we unpack these myths, we learn not to underestimate horror. It's a genre that respects the audience's intelligence and plays on their deepest fears, making it one of the most enduring and fascinating genres in cinema. Welcome to a spine-tingling exploration into the evolution of horror movie special effects. From the grainy black and white scares to today's hyper-realistic gore, special effects have not just progressed, they've transformed the very essence of horror cinema. In the early days, horror filmmakers used practical effects to create their nightmares. Think of Lon Chaney's self-applied makeup in The Phantom of the Opera. Chaney's pioneering techniques set a foundational stone for horror aesthetics. Jump forward to the 1960s and 70s, films like Psycho and The Exorcist pushed boundaries further, employing both practical effects and the beginnings of mechanical effects to enhance the terror. The 1980s marked a significant leap with the advent of animatronics and latex makeup. Movies like The Thing and An American Werewolf in London showcased transformations and creatures that were not just terrifying but bewilderingly realistic. These films relied heavily on the ingenuity and creativity of artists like Rob Bottin and Rick Baker. As we entered the digital age, CGI began to hold sway in the horror realm. The Ring and Saw series leveraged digital effects to create visuals that practical effects could not achieve alone. However, this shift brought about a debate among horror enthusiasts about the tangible authenticity of practical effects versus the limitless possibilities of digital effects. Today, we're seeing a renaissance of practical effects, complemented by digital enhancements, creating a hybrid that respects traditional methods while embracing new technologies. Films like Get Out and Us utilize this blend to not only scare but also visually narrate deeper stories. As we continue to push the boundaries of what can be achieved, the future of horror special effects looks both terrifying and exhilarating. Will the next generation of horror movies rely more on virtual reality, or will practical effects see a full resurgence? Only time will tell. As we peer into the dark corridors of the future, the evolution of horror cinema stands at a thrilling crossroads. Technological advancements and changing social narratives are shaping a new era of horror that might just redefine the genre altogether. The rise of streaming platforms has democratized the way horror films are distributed and consumed, allowing for more diverse stories and voices to emerge. This shift is not just about access, it's about perspective. Horror films are increasingly exploring societal fears and cultural taboos, weaving them into the fabric of traditional scare tactics. Furthermore, the integration of virtual and augmented reality into cinema presents an untapped frontier for horror. Imagine experiencing a horror film where you, the viewer, are part of the narrative. This immersive experience could revolutionize the genre, making the horror more personal and, by extension, more terrifying. The psychological horror genre is also seeing a resurgence, focusing more on deep-seated fears and less on overt gore. Films that explore the human psyche, provoke existential dread and challenge our perceptions are proving to be profoundly impactful. This trend is likely to continue, pushing horror into new, cerebral territories. Yet with all these advancements, one must wonder about the balance between innovation and the genre's core elements. Will the future of horror maintain its grip on the primal fears that have defined it, or will it morph into something unrecognizable? As we move forward, the certainty is the uncertainty, the endless possibilities that make horror an ever-evolving and captivating genre. Wherever we are headed, one thing remains true. The darkness will always beckon, inviting us to explore its depths. Thanks for joining me on this terrifying journey through the chilling realms of horror cinema. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for more horror content. Sleep tight if you can, and remember, the next scream you hear might just be your own.